All right, so first things first, let's talk about scapula and let's talk about the motions of the scapula. So the scapula essentially is nothing but a big triangle, okay? So what we're gonna have here is, over here we're gonna have our medial border, our superior border, up here would be our superior angle, and our lateral border. Over here, just for context, would be our glenoid fossa. When our scapula is rotating, I want you to pay attention to this axis, okay? This axis is going to provide basically a pivot point for the scapula. Here's what happens, okay? As my scapula is rotating, this would be upward rotation, this would be downward rotation. Okay, let's do that again. Upward rotation, downward rotation. Now, as I said earlier in lecture, if we upwardly rotate the scapula, the superior angle, denoted by the X on this triangle, is going to move slightly closer to the spine. Okay, look at that distance. That distance has decreased versus this distance. So that's the first big thing I want you to note, is that as we're rotating, obviously our inferior angle down here is going to move away. Our superior angle will move towards the spine. So now we're looking at a scapula, and now we have pencils that are denoting the different lines of pull of the trapezius. Again, here's our axis, denoted by the green dot. Our upper trapezius fibers, remember, are going to attach external occipital protuberance, nuchal line. Also, they're going to attach to the acromion and the lateral third of the clavicle. Middle fibers are going to attach spinous processes of thoracic vertebrae, also the spine of the scapula. Lower fibers are going to attach to the spine of the scapula, and also spinous processes of thoracic vertebrae all the way down to T12. Lower fibers, just as the pencil was noting, is going to depress. Middle fibers they're going to retract or adduct the scapula. The upper fibers are going to elevate. Now what happens is when all of those fibers contract, we actually get an upward rotation. The reason is because the different lines of pull and the different vectors that happen. So what we see is as we are moving our scapula, as we're rotating our scapula, these fibers in the lower trapezius are going to pull downward. Our middle fibers are going to pull in towards the spine. They're going to retract. Upper fibers are going to elevate. And what happens is that we have a pull going downward, a pull going in, and a pull going upward, and literally we get this sort of motion, okay? If I have fibers pulling upward and fibers pulling downward, that sort of motion is going to happen. Because remember, they're all pulling around this axis. As they're pulling around that axis, you're going to have an upward rotation of the scapula occur. It's very important to get this, because as we start adding in more muscle, as we start adding in what's happening not only at the scapula, but here in the next couple of learning units, we're going to start adding in what's happening at the glenohumeral joint as well. This becomes very important.